If you are African, you need to hear this.
Go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, and this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him? In Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea. The question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Now, watch this video to the end and help me share it. Welcome back again. This is BVI Channel 1, where you get undiluted gospel truth. I am a Pan-Africanist and an advocate for good governance. Talking about Africa and its governance, where you have series of coup d'etat, just like we had recently in Niger. The question is, who always are behind the truncation of democracy in Africa? Your answer is as good as mine after watching this.
General Langley, I have constituents that have been scattered across Africa on train and equip missions. So just ballpark, in the last decade, how many Africans has the United States military trained and equipped?
Congressman, I don't have that figure. I can get that figure for you.
Ballpark, just, how many?
Congressman, it would be a wild guess, right?
Seems like something we should know, right?
Over the years, we have trained a substantial number, especially in the Gulf of Guinea states, including
like more than 10,000.
It is more than 10,000.
More than 50,000.
I'd say we're reaching around 50,000 at least.
And what percentage of the people we've trained end up participating in insurrections or coups against their own government?
Very small number, Congressman, very small number.
So what percentage do you think?
I'd say probably less than 1%.
But it does happen.
The IMEC program is in force, and we've pushed a significant number through our schools across the
and what data sets do you track to arrive at the conclusion that less than 1% of the roughly 50,000 that we've trained have participated in coups? Because it'd be like about 500, about 1% of 50,000.
Congressman, you may have that information. I don't at this time, but I know.
Well, I know there are some, right? Like go ahead and throw up that image. This is Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, and this is a photo of him. Did we train and equip him? In Guinea?
By name, I cannot identify that.
Well, that guy in the middle with the big red hat, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, that's him with a bunch of U.S. service members outside of our embassy. And just months after this photo was taken in 2021, he led a coup in Guinea and threw out the leader. Does that concern you?
Congressman, core values is what we start off with in IMA programs.
Do we share core values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Core values. I will repeat that. Core values.
Respect for humanity. Do we share those values with Colonel Doumbouya?
Absolutely. In our curriculum.
He led a coup?
We do.
Okay, well, that's a very telling answer. In Burkina Faso, did we share core values with the leader that we trained there who led a coup?
It's in our curriculum. We stress core values. We request civilian-led governance.
Wait, hold on. Is leading coups in our curriculum?
Absolutely not. Civilian-led.
My question is, do we share core values with the coup leader in Burkina Faso who we trained?
Holistically, we teach core values with a respect for civilian governance, apolitical, and that's what sticks across a very high percentage in the 99
everybody,
percentile.
Right? But not everybody. And I wonder how many people it takes to to plan a coup? I mean, initially you didn't know how many we trained and equipped. Then you said it was 1%. You had no basis for that 1% number because there's no data set you track. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. Another U.S. trained soldier stages a coup in West Africa by The Intercept.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter into the record. U.S. forces trained the Guinean colonel behind the recent coup in West African country, and this is regard to Guinea.
Without objection, so ordered.
So I guess the question is, why should U.S. taxpayers be paying to train people who then lead coups in Africa?
Congressman, our curriculum harvests core values and also to be able to embolden these countries for a representative democracy.
But General, that democracy isn't what emerges. The problem is, I know you may have great confidence in what you're teaching, but when two governments have been overthrown, I guess how many governments have to be overthrown by people we train before you sort of get the message that our core values might not be sticking with everyone? Is it 5 countries? 10?
We'll continue with our persistence in assuring
But do you think it's
that
working?
they harbor democratic norms, democratic values.
Just a moment ago, you
apolitical.
said we shared core values with Colonel Doumbouya. You said that just moments ago in response to my question, and his core value seems to be leading a coup. So I don't think it's stuck. I think we should at least know how many countries we train the coup plotters in. How many is too many? Because clearly 2 is not too many, and I think we could use our resources far more effectively than doing this.
Now, not just, organizing or training people that end up carrying out coup. Now, the question again, African leaders must answer, because I used to say in our local palace, in Igbo language, oh, good morning, to how are you? That when you say good morning, the next thing that comes next is how are you? It is something that results to something. In most cases, where you have a stable democracy, just like we had in the past, Kwame Nkrumah, they were toppled by military. As occasioned in different countries, where you have, a popular governance, just like we witnessed in Libya, it is still the Western world that truncates these processes to superimpose whoever they can control. For what purpose? They will be very quick to condemn coup in Africa when they are not involved. Understand that? Just like the one you have in Niger Republic, where they succeeded in planting a stooge that helps them to milk African economy and resources. They don't plan coup there. And when their stooge is being toppled because the corruption is becoming unbearable, you see them come out to condemn it. Just like we had in Nigeria, we had a democratic coup. Instead of condemning that electoral process that brought in an illegitimate government, they congratulated it. Tomorrow, if you topple that very illegitimate government through coup, they will condemn it. But they never condemned the democratic coup. You see, the problem of Africa, we understand that. And the games the Western world are playing against Africa, we also understand that. And that is why I'm making this video, to raise the consciousness of African people to see in between the lines. In Niger Republic, they are one of the world's largest hosts of uranium, which is very important to countries, these superpowers, to supply their nuclear energy. Yes.
Niger has large deposits of uranium, the fuel for nuclear power plants, which is sought after by countries who possess them. However, the sector of the nation's main mineral resource, which represented 60,000 of export earnings in 2010.
The Nigerian government and French nuclear firm Orano have signed a deal to extend the operational life of Niger's sole uranium mine. Orano is the restructured successor to the state-owned Areva, which began uranium mining in Niger around 50 years ago, extracting raw material intended mainly for France's nuclear industry. On the industrial side, we're mutually committed to working together to enable Somai to last, to extract the full potential of Somai's deposits. The military coup in Niger does not pose a problem for supplies of nuclear fuel for the European Union (EU). Spokesperson of the European Commission, Adaba Jean, said this Tuesday amid concerns of disruption to the supplies of uranium to the EU. Niger was the EU's second largest supplier of natural uranium in 2022, with a share of 25% after Kazakhstan. It has some of the world's biggest deposits of uranium, a key ingredient in the nuclear industry.
Recently, French African countries have been rising against France and the grip it has on their nations. Just recently, Mali decided to drop French as it declared that it is no longer its official language. Not long after that, Vladimir Putin invited African nations, especially those under France's thumb. These countries all said enough is enough. They asked themselves, how can our countries be so resource-rich, yet we are so poor? Currently, there is a coup in Niger, which most of the citizens are in support. The military has ousted the government of President Mohamed Bazoum. Some of the ECOWAS nations condemn this act, and has given Niger's military a 7-day request to restore the ousted president. The new military government doesn't seem bothered. The very first thing the new government did was ban the export of their uranium and gold to France, as they believed they are being exploited by France while their people suffer. This will be a lot of problem for France, as 1/3 of the homes in France are powered by uranium from Niger. Can you imagine that? Almost your whole country is powered by another country, yet that same country is the second poorest country in the world. It doesn't just end there. Over 80% of homes in Niger lack access to electricity, while France enjoys this. Gold is obviously one of the most precious metals in the world. Every country wants to accumulate as much gold as possible. The more gold you have, bigger your GDP and the richer your country. France gets all its gold from the African countries it ruled, including Niger, and now Niger just banned its source of power and its source of money.
And you can also see the level of poverty among African continent or countries in Africa. High rate of poverty despite having deposits of the world's most needed resources, because these corrupt politicians and leaders who are planted by the Western superpowers help them to loot African resources. And when they are toppled, they condemn it. Why they leave Africa in abject poverty? That is just it. They leave Africa in abject poverty, and when they are toppled, you see them condemn it. When people have credible elections and have a popular person in power, they will be the ones to go behind doors to topple the government through coup. We understand their game back and forth, all in one bid to exploit and continue exploiting African resources. This is all we call new colonialism. And they are colonizing us indirectly through our political leaders. That is why what Good Governance Ministry is doing is extremely very important. Until Africans wake up, just like Nigerians are waking up, to ensure that any form of illegitimate government or a stooge, because they will always go after African so-called leaders or persons who has some cases hanging over his neck, especially in their host countries, in America, in Europe, in all of those countries that have interest in Africa. They will always choose those people to plant them as stooges because they have some stake hanging on their neck. They use that to control them and make them to submit to their own bidding. This is the problem of Africa. And Africans must start identifying these men and never allow them to hold political power. That is where to start. Because these guys, they go in, they continue using these infested, corrupt, infested persons as your political leaders to milk your economy and make you to continue to suffer in penury. Then the rebound came of it is that we will all keep running away from our continent, from our countries, going out to slave in their countries with condition. They will give you condition to come and slave in their own country because you have bad leaders, because you refuse to get involved in the political revolution. Because if I say arms revolt, to be honest with you, the poor people will be the victims. And I'm not an advocate of violence and anarchy. That's why I've always spoke up for political involvement, political revolution, ballot revolution. That is the only way out. That is the only way out, my people. Do not allow anybody to tell you otherwise. I remain a voice and I'll keep speaking until not just Nigerians wake up, but Africans as a whole, so that we can start rebuilding our homeland and stop being the 21st century slaves to these superpowers. Help me share this video, my people, and keep subscribing for more truth. Bye-bye for now.